Welcome to the Say Yes Movement podcast with Heather and John, where we help you with your professional and personal development, helping you say yes to all the scary stuff. Hey, Heather, how's it going today?
It's going great, John. How about yourself? Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. I can't believe we're already here. I don't know about you, but it's feeling a bit crisp outside, right? Like it's just, you can feel that change in season. It's time to finish off with summer and go into, I'm going to say fall or autumn, depending on how you say it. But yeah, the change of season is always interesting for me. How about you?
You know what? It's a time for me to really enjoy the outdoors because it's those last days that you're going to get outside before you got to really bundle up and put the winter coat on. But it's crisp and it feels good, so you can take some deep breaths and feel it in your lungs, and it just I don't know, it feels alive to me. And I hear so many people sort of complaining that the seasons are changing, and to me, it's exciting. So it's all how you frame or reframe your belief systems. That's definitely what the changes of seasons means for me.
Yeah, I know we talked about this on one of our other episodes, but to me, the fall is really the start of the year, right? When you think about, the kids
Hmm.
going back to school, us as professors, being, in school teaching at this point, it's like the beginning of a year, not that we're working towards the end of the year. So for me, it's a bit of a transition. It's different, right? Like different from any other year. Being back in school is different, right? Like being back in school, not as a student, even, is completely different. And all these changes and transitions that we're both going through is amazing. And you're getting ready for your big trip to Mongolia. There's so many
Yes.
different things that are going on. It's kind of crazy. It's crazy, actually.
You know what?
Wow.
You know
Like,
what
how do we
I
get
love
here?
I love
Yeah.
about September and kids going back to school. There's so many lessons to be learned from the kids that we think only the kids need to learn. So the kids are going back to school. They've been now back at school for a couple weeks. They're getting their homework. They're coming up with new routines. They've met new friends in some cases. They're joining us sports teams. And, that's what our children are doing. And why isn't it what we're doing too? Think of all of those processes that the kids are going through, massive change. And it's all so that they can have the best life possible. And as adults, we can do the same thing. What if we decided that in September we were going to make new friends, learn a new subject, create a routine that was going to help us in the future? So, the school routine for our kids is a transferable routine that we can put on ourselves. But often, what happens is the stress gets elevated in the household because the parents are like, got to make lunches, got to figure out how to get the kids to school, how to pick them up. And what if we just reframe that to this is a reset moment for having
Mm.
our best life? I don't know.
Wow. Yeah, I know. I love that. And listen, just, what showed up for me as you were saying all of that is going back and reconnecting with people, right? Because so there is I'm going to say an expectation, depending on, whether or not your child has been in the same school, their entire school academic career. But I don't know about you, but I moved around at least twice in elementary school. So I got to go to two different schools, actually three different schools, all starting with an A, ironically. But it was really interesting because there was never the expectation was you just got along, right? Like you just figure it out. Like as a kid, you walk into a classroom, you're in a brand new environment, and the expectations from parents, not just for me, but for other kids that were moving to the school too, was just figure it out, right? Like get
Mm.
along. Like there was none of this. It's unfortunate, but this is what I hear from some parents: is they want their kids to stay with their friends as they're going through their school career. And
Mm.
here's the challenge that I have with that. It doesn't teach them new adapting skills with other people, right? Because if you're always with the same people, you don't really need to grow, right? Like you want
Mm.
to have a circle of people that are growing together, people that are different, and you want to get different ideologies from different folks. But if you're with the same people and you'll see this, right? Like I see it, right? Like when you're with that cluster of people, the same people all doing the same thing, I think there's an opportunity that's being missed because that growth just isn't there.
I think
And
you're
it's
onto
being
something there, John, because I remember in high school, I didn't want to do my math class because I didn't like my teacher, and I I've told this story before, but my teacher told my mom girls don't need math, so I was able to drop it and take it in summer school. And that was a whole moment in my life that changed my trajectory. But because chose to take it in summer school, I actually went to a different school for that class.
Mhm.
So I knew no one at that school. None of my friends were going to summer school. That was unheard of. But I just thought it was the smartest thing that I could do. I actually ended up doing summer school throughout all of my high school and did it at a different school because I was able to fast track and finish a semester earlier than everyone else. So I thought I was like the smartest kid ever doing this. And all of my friends were like, no, I want the summer off. But I got exposed to different people, different
Mhm.
ethnic groups, different professors, and just a whole different view. And I think it really did shape my thought and my ideas of what's the path forward. And I didn't follow the normal path. I actually made my schoolwork a little bit less in the school year, and then took two classes in the summer. So I gave myself space to get it done. And why do we have to follow this prescribed path all the time? We feel like you go to school, you get a job, you work at it, you retire. That's Oh my God, that's the silliest plan I've ever heard, but it's still prescribed out there. People are
Oh
still
yeah.
looking for this. And I
No,
hear so many people
100%.
say, "Oh, I can't change my career. I've already put in the time. These are called sunk costs, and it's a sunk cost fallacy. Just because you put in the time does not mean that you have to stay and put in more time into something that isn't bringing your life joy and happiness.
Yeah.
And I see it happen all the time.
Yeah, no, I'm with you 100%. Like, just moving school. So for me, somewhat, I actually ended up going to summer school a few times too, because I wasn't necessarily the best student. So I needed the summer school just to get through. But, I ended up moving from downtown to North York and then in different places in North York too, right? Like from downtown Toronto to North, and just the shift, right? Like I remember walking into my school for the first time in North York, and the kids were like, "Oh, you're a downtown kid." It's like, you're tough, right? I'm like, no, yes, like I don't know, like so it was funny because they had already put me into like a box, a stereotype of sorts, because I was the downtown kid, right? Like I moved in the fourth
Mm,
grade, and then in the seventh or eighth grade I moved again, right? And it was in where this was in the area, for those that are familiar with Toronto, this was at Steeles and Bayview, right? So for the first time I was exposed to like Asian kids, right? Like it was like in downtown Toronto I was surrounded by Europeans, Portuguese, Italians, Greeks. I didn't like it was just different. Like what's a Filipino person like? Like I don't know, I didn't see it, I didn't grow up with it,
mm.
right? And then moving from there to the other part of North York, it was completely different. Like it was just so different in terms of who I was exposed to. And I think you're right? Like I think it put us on a completely different path in life, because I was no longer the European kid. I wasn't just Portuguese. I was Canadian first, Portuguese second. And, it exposed me to so many different cultures, right? Like I got very familiar with the Filipino culture, the Asian culture, uh, Canadian, Canadian culture, I guess. I like Canadians that have been here more than 4 or 5 generations. It was like, it was so different. It was so like I was the kid at school. My mom would bring me lunches, right? Like my mom was the best when we were in school. And she'd bring me steak and fries, right? Like a fully cooked meal. It was still warm. Like there was none of this peanut butter sandwich stuff, right? And she would bring it, and the kids in class, they'd be like drooling because they're eating peanut butter and ham sandwich. Like, what's that? I didn't even know what that was until I got into North York, right? Because European kids don't eat that stuff, right? It was so interesting, and just there was a bit of for me to adapt into that environment, right? And I can only imagine what it's like for kids moving into new schools now, right? Like parents are so protective of keeping kids together, right? Like I want them to
Mm,
be in the same class as their best friend. No, don't do that, because there might be another
no.
best friend in another class somewhere that you don't know about. and you're stopping that growth, you're stopping that innovation, you're stopping that, connection with others, right? Because that is something I feel, and I might be wrong, and if I'm wrong, I apologize in advance, but kids aren't making the connections because they're sticking to their little cliques and their little groups, right?
Yeah, and
And
it's been even
because,
harder,
yeah,
right? Like
yeah,
there's for the children that that went through COVID, they've lost some life skills.
hmm
They've lost the ability to read facial expressions, to notice body language. These are skills that you practice year over year, day after day. And there's just 3 years missing in that skill building. So depending on what age the children are, we have to actually give them more and more practice. But let me put that out there. We have to practice and show them as
hmm
well. And both of us, John, we're seeing people getting more nervous than they were before, when they're doing presentations, more nervous having to talk to a group of individuals in the workplace, more nervous going to networking events and meeting new colleagues or peers, or even going for that job interview, and they're so used to doing job interviews on Zoom, and now they're going to go in person, and they're not sure how to manage their entire communication vessel, which is their entire body, in the most appropriate way. So these are skills that we've lost along the way, and the best way to get them back is, of course, practice, practice, practice.
practice,
And
practice,
what does
yeah.
that look like? Don't just send your kids off to school and say, go make new friends. You actually need to make new friends too. And what does that look like? Maybe it's going to your kid's soccer game and talking to all of the other parents and introducing yourself, and be interested in what they do, and how, learn from them. So there's lots of places that you can do this, but it is definitely a gap that we're both seeing, and it's a gap that we can fill. It's completely easy to fill. And the best way, I say this over and over and over again, the best way to make new friends is a really simple thing. Be interested, not interesting. Be interested in the other person. Don't worry about you being interesting, whether they like you or not. That's your ego getting in the way. Just be interested in them. And you can practice at the dinner table with the kids, get
hmm
interested in what their day was like, and then they'll learn those questions and they'll ask them to their friends as well. So we're always teachers, no matter what we're doing.
Yeah, no, you know what? You touch on an incredibly important point there. We are always modeling for our children. They are
Mm-hmm.
always watching us. And even though you don't think they're paying attention because they're doing other things, they are always paying attention. And I didn't realize this until it was one dinner session, or there was something a conversation that we had, right? And I was at the dinner table with the kids and we were talking, and then it's almost like you can start hearing your voice in them, right?
Mm.
And I'm like, ooh, we are getting through, right? Like even though even though you feel like, sometimes it can be exhausting, right? Like sometimes it's like just do it. Like just do what I tell you to do because I trust me it's going to work. That's not how it works. The world doesn't work like that. And the more you tell them to do what you do, just like having a boss, right? That says, hey, go do this, go do that. Like nobody
Yeah.
wants to be micromanaged, right? So you have to show them. You
Yeah.
have to be the leader, right? Like you have to show them you have to show them the behavior in your, like the behavior has to be in you first before it shows up in anyone else, whether it's your kids, it's your team, it's whatever. Like it has to be inside you first because that's what they model. We are always modeling those around us
Well,
subconsciously, more subconsciously than consciously, right? Like we don't even know that. Why did I say that? Oh, because I heard it here and then really made sense. It resonated really well. So I ended up saying this. So we are always in a state of modeling. So be the model for your children, be the model for
yes.
your
And this is
team.
not just for parents.
No, it's
This
not just this is for
for your team,
everybody, right?
exactly. At work,
Yeah. This is for
at work,
everybody.
people
Like,
are always watching you,
yeah, no, you're right. People
especially
are
if
always
you're a
watching.
leader.
Yes, absolutely. I think there's a bit of a audio sync issue here, but we're good. We're getting through it, Heather. It's
Yes.
a bit of
So if
delay.
you're a leader,
Yes, go ahead.
if you're a leader and you are and you are leading a team, know that people are watching you. They're watching you to see, can they trust you? Can they do
Mhm.
the same thing that you're doing? And always think to yourself, you want to be inspiring to someone that is just a few steps behind you. So I always think of that one person that I want to inspire. And guess who that one person is? It's someone that looks and sounds like me, just a few days, weeks, or months behind me, so that I'm always thinking of who around me could I inspire. And that is a really good method to think about. Would Who did I have to look up for? Because there was many years in corporate world that I didn't have anyone that looked or sounded like me, and I didn't know how to model it. So I tried on all kinds of different things. But this modeling process, looking at someone's attitude, actions, behaviors, beliefs, and values, and then following them and saying, do I believe in the same things? Yes, I do. Well, how am I going to act and behave that will elevate me as a leader, and modeling those behaviors? This is a process that we learn in
Mhm.
neurolinguistics programming. And it's actually a really fun thing to do, because when you model someone's behavior and when you mirror someone's behavior, the connection is immediate with that person.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, yeah, absolutely. No, I love that you talked about that. Watching for all the little things that are happening in somebody else's behavior. Like, how are they really acting when nobody's watching? And I think
Yes.
this is the important, this is the thing that we need to realize. Even when we think nobody's watching, people are watching. Like, it's what you do in private that really stands out and makes a difference, and essentially is characterizes who you are as a person, right? It's not when you're on stage in front of people say, oh, that's not, you know, yes, that's who you are, but it's who you are in private, and it's the little things that you do behind the scenes that really make a difference. So
Mhm.
especially when it comes to our kids too, right? Like, how they are in private with us is really how they are, right? Like when they're in front of their friends. And this is what I've always, the one thing I always struggled with is, why do I need to be one person at work? Why do I need to be another person at home? And why do I need to be another person with my running group or whatever? Like, can I just be the same person in all three? And
Yes.
like
Yes.
that I struggled with for the longest time. I was like, why do I do that? Like, why am I different people? Because I feel like I need to appease these people this way, this person this way, and just be you right across the board. I
No.
think that is
No.
the most challenging and one of the most difficult things. And that's what we expect from our kids when they go back to school. Like, just be you. That's what we tell them all the time. Just be you. But, for them to conform and be on a sports team and to be on a debate team or a chess team or somebody to be on our own team to be part of a project, we want people a certain way in order to have them on our teams.
Yeah.
So just let people be the way they need to be, right? But
All
the
right.
person, you got to make sure you're also contributing and adding value too. So
Oh,
let me put
yes.
that preface in there, right? Because that's important.
John, let's get to the call to action so we can let everybody get to work today. This is really simple, guys. Whatever you've asked your children, if you're a parent, if you've asked your kids to do something that's different or outside the norm of their regular schedule because it's September and they're getting into a new routine, ask yourself, am I doing the same thing? Am I modeling the right behavior? If you don't
Mhm.
have kids, just think of the new school schedule and ask yourself, is there something that I can do in my routine that would honor September in the best way? Might be learning a new skill, might be making new friends, might be joining a sports team, whatever that is. Think about it today and take action on it today. And I'll tell you, your life will be so much better by taking this action, because you will be elevating yourself and expanding your thought process. So I can't wait. And if you make new friends, if you learn a new skill, whatever it is, let us know. Me and John love hearing these stories. We love hearing what groups you've joined, the book club you joined. We often jump into these things because we love the community that we've built here. So that is our call to action for today.
Yeah, no, I love it. Thank you, Heather. And that's a great takeaway. Just be aware of how you are showing up and how you're showing up to others because people are watching. All right. So just remember, when you shift your mindset, you shift your life. We also have our Confident Communicator course. If you're looking for more skills in terms of just building up your confidence when you speak and you communicate with others, there's a link below that's going to take you to that, where you can find out more about our online program that's going to help you become more confident as a speaker. Thank you for tuning in. Wishing you all a great one. Talk to y'all soon. Take care, everybody.